I thought our life was perfect, our luxury trips, the parties, the laughter. But everything changed when my husband left me behind on a Santorini trip, leaving me humiliated in front of our friends. That betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined, igniting a fire inside me that I didn't know existed. Over the course of the year, I quietly planned my comeback, uncovering secrets that would flip my life upside down. In the end, I didn't just reclaim my dignity, I transformed my entire year and my sense of self. I remember the morning we were supposed to leave for Santorini. The sun was spilling across our Texas estate like it always did, golden, warm, perfect. My husband, Michael, kissed me on the cheek and whispered something sweet, or so I thought. I had packed everything meticulously. My favorite dresses, our travel itinerary, every detail planned. I imagined the white cliffs, the turquoise water, and us walking hand in hand. But when I arrived at the airport, my boarding pass clenched in my hand, I realized he wasn't there. Michael wasn't on the flight. He had left me behind. I called him. No answer. Texts ignored. The ticket confirmation showed his seat empty. Empty. And that was the first crack in the life I thought we had built together. I didn't know then that this moment, the betrayal, the humiliation, would mark the start of a year that would change me forever. If you've ever felt abandoned by someone you loved, subscribe. You don't want to miss what happens next. Days passed, and Michael's silence was deafening. Friends who noticed my solitude whispered excuses for him. He's busy. He forgot. He didn't mean to. But I knew better. My gut told me this was intentional. At night, I'd sit on our balcony, the Texas wind brushing my face, imagining what he might be doing, who he might be with. Each imagined scene felt like a knife twisting inside me. I started replaying every conversation, every argument, every smile he had given me. Was it all an act? Then I found it, a receipt in his briefcase. A flight to Santorini, booked for someone else. Before we go further, if you've ever felt betrayal cut deeper than you thought possible, hit subscribe. You need to see how this unfolds. I confronted him when he finally returned. His calm demeanor, his excuses, they were unbearable. I asked him directly. Why didn't you come with me? He looked away. And then he admitted it. He was with someone else. Someone new. I felt my chest tighten, my hands shaking. The world seemed to tilt sideways. How could someone I trusted, someone I loved, do this to me? That night, alone in our room, I made a decision. I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't beg. I would plan. If betrayal has ever left you questioning everything, subscribe. Before this story gets even darker. Weeks passed. I couldn't eat. Sleep was fractured. I saw our friends, our colleagues, all unaware of the storm raging inside me. And every time Michael smiled, every time he spoke casually, I hated him a little more. I started writing in a journal. My thoughts, my fears, my anger. I recorded everything, not for him, not for anyone, but for myself. And then, unexpectedly, I found clarity. I realized humiliation was temporary. Power was permanent. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to turn this betrayal into my advantage. If you've ever been wronged, you'll want to stay for what comes next. Don't let this story pass by. Subscribe now. I started digging. Financial records, emails, phone messages, everything. What I found shocked me. Michael had been hiding more than just an affair. Investments, secret accounts, deals meant to sideline me completely. I realized I could use his own empire against him. But I had to be careful. One wrong move, and I'd lose everything. I spent nights in the home office. Lights off, heart racing, learning the parts of his business he thought I never knew. And then, in the middle of a late-night search, I found an email. That would change everything. I moved quietly, deliberately. Legal loopholes, silent transfers, careful whispers to allies he didn't know I had. Each step felt like walking a tightrope over fire. And the night it all came together, I felt a surge I hadn't felt in months. Power, control, clarity. Michael came home that evening, unaware. I greeted him politely. Nothing seemed amiss. But by morning, everything would be different. He didn't see it coming. And that was exactly the point. If you've ever dreamed of standing up for yourself when betrayed, subscribe now. You'll want to see how he reacts. Michael realized, too late, what had happened. His empire was no longer his. I had reclaimed what was mine, and then some. And yet, I felt no glee. The real victory wasn't revenge, it was knowing I had survived, that I had outsmarted betrayal itself. But even in triumph, I had questions. Could I ever trust again? Could I forgive myself for enjoying this? If betrayal has ever made you stronger, share your story below. And don't forget to subscribe. A year later, I look back and I barely recognize the person I was then: hurt, humiliated, powerless. Today, I stand taller, stronger, and unapologetically myself. I didn't just survive betrayal. I transformed it into power, clarity, and self-worth. And the lesson? Sometimes, the person who leaves you behind is the one who unwittingly shows you the path to owning yourself. If this story touched you, subscribe to follow me, and remember, your strength can turn any heartbreak into your greatest victory. I remember that morning like it was painted in sunlight, warm, golden, impossible to believe that it would end in the kind of betrayal that haunts dreams. The Texas sky spilled across our estate, a perfect backdrop for what I thought would be a perfect trip. Santorini. White cliffs, turquoise waters, quiet beaches. Our dream escape. I had packed for days. My favorite dresses, carefully folded. Shoes arranged by color and occasion. Jewelry tucked in velvet pouches. Every detail, every outfit, every accessory, I had thought of it all. I imagined Michael walking beside me, his hand in mine, us laughing under the Aegean sun. But when I arrived at the airport, my boarding pass clutched in one hand and my carry-on dragging behind me, I noticed something strange. His seat, empty. Michael wasn't there. I called him. Nothing. Voicemail. Texts ignored. My stomach twisted as I looked at the empty seat on the confirmation screen. Empty. It was impossible. How could someone who said they loved me, someone I trusted with my life, leave me behind like this? I wanted to cry, to scream, to wake up from this nightmare. But I couldn't. I couldn't let anyone see me like that. Not at the airport. Not in front of the concierge who had greeted me so cheerfully, not in front of the other passengers. Why would he do this? Was it forgetfulness? Some terrible, careless accident? Or was it intentional? The thought alone made my chest ache. My mind spun with possibilities. None of them comforting. I sat in the lounge, watching travelers around me. Couples laughing, friends hugging, families bustling. And there I was, alone, pretending to scroll through my phone, pretending that everything was fine while my world tilted on its axis. I kept replaying every interaction with Michael over the past few weeks. Every casual remark, every smile, every touch. Was it real? Was any of it real? And then I noticed it. A little slip I hadn't paid attention to, a message he had accidentally left on my phone days ago. Can't wait to see you later. Tonight. But the tone was wrong. Off. Detached. I should have brushed it off. I wanted to brush it off. But my gut screamed otherwise. Something had changed. Something had shifted, and I was about to be thrown into a world I didn't recognize. As the hours passed, I wandered the airport terminal, clutching my boarding pass as if it were a lifeline. I tried to imagine what my trip would be like alone. The sun, the cliffs, the endless blue. Alone. A chill ran down my spine at the thought. And then, when I finally forced myself to board the plane, a sense of surreal disbelief washed over me. The flight attendant smiled, handed me my champagne, wished me a pleasant trip. Everything was normal. Everything seemed fine. But inside, I was a storm. I had no idea, sitting in that plane seat, staring out at the endless sky, that this moment, the humiliation, the betrayal, the quiet devastation, would mark the start of a year that would change me forever. I promised myself two things that day. 1, I would survive this. And 2, I would not let him forget the pain he had caused me. Because what I didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. If you've ever felt abandoned by someone you loved, subscribe now. You don't want to miss what happens next. And as the plane took off, I glanced at the empty seat beside me, and felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in months. Something that whispered. Maybe this betrayal wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. The first few days after Santorini were unbearable. I stayed in our Texas home, the rooms echoing with the absence of him. Michael's silence was deafening. Louder than any argument, louder than any accusation I could have hurled. Friends called, concerned. "Where is Michael?" they asked. I smiled faintly, brushing it off. "He's busy with work." But inside, I felt the walls closing in. The laughter of our neighbors, the chatter of friends on the phone, the clinking of glasses at dinner parties, all of it was a reminder that my life had tilted sideways, and I had no one to steady it. I remember sitting on our balcony, the Texas wind brushing my face, the horizon bathed in orange and pink hues, and imagining Michael somewhere else smiling, perhaps with her. The thought was unbearable, but I couldn't stop. My mind painted every detail, the curve of her smile, the softness of her hair, the way he might laugh in a way he hadn't for me in months. The nights were worse. Sleep refused to come. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining conversations I'd never have. Apologies that would never come, the life we were supposed to have shared. My heart ached not just with betrayal but with a strange, hollow confusion. Had I imagined the past months? Was anything real? I started noticing little things, signs I had missed. A perfume scent that wasn't mine, subtle messages on his phone that were now glaringly obvious. And then came the first proof, the first undeniable crack in my illusion. A receipt. Not just any receipt, of flight confirmation. Santorini. But not for me. For her. I stared at it for what felt like hours, tracing the numbers, the dates, the small, mocking precision of it. He had been planning this. And I had done nothing to stop it. How could he betray me like this? How could someone who promised love, fidelity, partnership, do this so deliberately? I felt a surge of anger, a swelling tide of humiliation. I wanted to scream. I wanted to destroy something, anything, just to feel control again. But I didn't. Instead, I bottled it. I bottled every insult, every humiliation, every tear I wanted to shed, and I let it ferment. Quietly, methodically, I began to plan. Friends tried to cheer me up, but I withdrew. Conversations became perfunctory. I laughed when I had to, smiled when I had to, but my mind was elsewhere. I was unraveling, yes. But I was also sharpening. Every moment alone, every quiet second of heartbreak, became a building block for something new. Then one evening, I saw something on his social media, something I wasn't supposed to. A photograph of him. Smiling with her. And not just smiling. Laughing. The kind of laugh he hadn't shared with me in years. And in that instant, I realized. The betrayal wasn't just real, it was public. Open. Mocking. If you've ever been blindsided like this, subscribe now. You need to see what I did next. That night, alone in our bedroom, I opened his desk drawer, and found a folder that I wasn't meant to see. Hidden files. Emails. Financial statements. Secrets he thought only he knew. I had no idea what I was holding, but I knew one thing. My life, as I knew it, had just shifted. And there was no going back. Weeks passed. I became quiet, calculating. I observed, I listened, I absorbed every small detail of his routine. And through it all, I promised myself. I would not crumble. I would not beg. And one day, he would see. He had underestimated me. Because in the silence of his absence, I was beginning to find my voice. And that voice would roar. I didn't want to confront him. I told myself I was being rational, waiting for the right moment. But the ache in my chest wouldn't let me wait any longer. That evening, when Michael finally returned home, I felt the familiar mix of dread and resolve curling in my stomach. The house smelled like his cologne, sharp, clean, ordinary. I stood in the hallway, watching him remove his jacket, as if nothing had happened. As if leaving me behind on Santorini, leaving me humiliated, had been normal. I couldn't hold it anymore. "Why didn't you come with me?" I asked, my voice trembling, yet trying to steady itself. He looked at me. Not the loving look I'd expected. Not even surprise. Just a flicker of something detached. Then he looked away. And then the words came, cold and deliberate. I was with someone else. The room tilted. The walls closed in. The floor felt like it might give way beneath me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to collapse on the floor. But my body froze. Betrayal had a weight heavier than I'd ever imagined. All the small betrayals, the dismissals, the little lies over the past months. They were now pieces of a puzzle I hadn't wanted to see. And the affair was the final, impossible piece. I remember staring at him, my mind struggling to process the words. My own husband, the man I had trusted with my heart, my life, my every secret. With someone else. I could feel the tears brimming, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not here, not in front of him. I left the room. I needed air. I needed distance from the man who had shattered my world so carelessly. Outside, the night was still, the Texas stars sharp and cold above me. And in that stillness, a strange clarity began to form. If he thought this betrayal would destroy me, he was wrong. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't plead. I wouldn't cry at his feet. I would survive. And I would rise. That night, alone in the bedroom, I made a silent promise. This wasn't the end of my story. Not by a long shot. Because what I discovered next would set in motion a chain of events that he would never see coming. I started watching him more closely, studying his patterns, his habits, the people he met. Every slip, every forgotten password, every casual glance at his phone, it all became a map. A map I could use. And then, just when I thought I had absorbed everything, I found a photograph. Not just any photograph, a snapshot of them together. Smiling. Laughing. Intimate in a way that made my stomach twist. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was proof. Evidence. And the knowledge that I had been replaced, dismissed, laughed at. It fueled something inside me that I hadn't known existed. And in that moment, I realized. Revenge wouldn't be optional. It would be necessary. Weeks passed after the confrontation, and yet the betrayal lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every room in our Texas home felt different now, colder, emptier, echoing with the absence of trust. Michael moved through our house as if nothing had happened, but I felt the tension under every smile, behind every casual remark. I tried to talk to friends, but even their concern felt superficial. He'll come around, they said, give him time. But I couldn't, time wouldn't heal this. Not this kind of deception. The wound was too deep, and it pulsed with every memory of what I had believed our life to be. I started writing in a journal, my thoughts spilling across pages in messy, jagged lines. I wrote about my anger, my humiliation, the nights I spent imagining their laughter, their closeness, and my heart breaking all over again. Writing was the only way to keep the pieces of myself intact. Sometimes I would sit on the balcony, staring at the sprawling Texas skyline, letting the wind wash over me. I would whisper to myself, almost like a prayer. I am more than this. I am stronger than this. I will not let this break me. The humiliation, the betrayal, the quiet torment, slowly, it began to shift into something else. A clarity. A focus. I realized that the real pain wasn't just being left behind, or being replaced. The real pain was the powerlessness I had allowed myself to feel. And power was something I intended to reclaim. I spent hours revisiting our past. Conversations, arguments, small slips, tiny lies, everything suddenly looked different. The clues had been there all along, hidden in plain sight. And now that I saw them, I could begin to understand the man I had married, and, more importantly, the opportunities I had ignored. One evening, alone in the study, I opened his laptop. Not to snoop, or maybe, yes, to snoop, but with a purpose. I wanted to understand him, his work, his business dealings, his secrets. And what I found shocked me. Financial records he thought I couldn't access. Emails that hinted at betrayals beyond just me. Deals made in secret. A web of deception I hadn't imagined. I felt something strange, a mix of fear, disbelief, and excitement. Because if he thought he could hide, if he thought his betrayal was safe, he was wrong. I realized then. This was my moment. Not just to survive, but to rise. To reclaim not just my dignity, but control. And maybe, to make him feel the weight of what he had done. But even as I planned quietly, carefully, I knew I needed more. I needed information. allies, a strategy. And I didn't yet know that the first key would come from the very thing he had tried to hide. Nights became my laboratory. I stayed awake, studying his routines, memorizing passwords, noting phone habits, tracing financial flows. Every small slip he made became a tool. Every careless gesture a map. And slowly, I began to see a way to turn this betrayal into leverage. But power is never simple. Every step I considered brought with it risk. One wrong move, and I could lose everything. And yet, the thought of remaining powerless was unbearable. Because what I discovered next hidden in his own files would change the game entirely. And it was the first piece of the plan he would never see coming. The night I opened that folder, everything changed. It was buried deep inside his hard drive, hidden behind layers of mislabeled files and password-protected archives. He must have believed no one would ever look there. No one would ever question him. No one would ever doubt him. But he had underestimated the woman he betrayed. Inside the folder was a series of documents, contracts, wire transfers, confidential memos from his business partners. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Numbers, signatures, offshore accounts. Then it clicked. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating the company. And he was covering it up. Tens of thousands of dollars being moved under the table. A shell corporation he created in another state. Expenses disguised as consulting fees. This wasn't marital betrayal. This was corporate fraud. And my husband Michael thought he was untouchable. He thought no one would ever make the connection. But he forgot something essential. When you break a person's heart, you sharpen their vision. I closed the laptop and sat back in the leather chair, my pulse racing. Not from fear, but from clarity. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt awake. Focused. Determined. What he had done to me was unforgivable. But this opened a door I didn't know existed. A door into his world, a world he believed I was too emotional to understand. He had underestimated me again. I grabbed my journal, not the one filled with heartbreak, but a new one. A fresh page. A fresh stratege. I wrote a single question at the top. If he can betray me, why can't I outsmart him? Below it, I listed what I now understood. He's hiding financial misconduct. He believes I'm too broken to notice. He has powerful allies. And even more powerful enemies. His arrogance is his weakest point. And weakness can be leveraged. Just as I started mapping out the corporate connections, my phone lit up. A message. From an unknown number. At first he hesitated. Then I opened it. It read, "You don't know me. But you deserve to know what Michael has been doing at the office." Attached was a single photo. Michael. In the parking lot. Late at night. Handing a briefcase to a man whose face was partially hidden. Another betrayal. Another secret. Another puzzle piece. Whoever sent that message. They knew something. They knew a lot. But he didn't reply. Not yet. Because information without strategy is chaos. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was thinking. Planning. Watching. Something big was happening behind his closed doors. Something dangerous. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized that his entire life was built on lies, carefully layered, perfectly structured, until the cracks started to show. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. Because confrontation is loud. And power is silent. But the next file I opened would confirm everything. And give me the weapon I never expected to hold. That night, when the house finally went silent, I returned to the laptop, determined to peel back every remaining layer of Michael's secrets. The glow of the screen washed over the room, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. A warning, a promise. I clicked on the next locked folder. It asked for a password. But I had already learned something about Michael. He wasn't original. Not with passwords. Not with lies. Not with anything. I tried the password he used for his gym account. Denied. His mother's birthday. Denied. His favorite football team. Access granted. For a man hiding corporate crime, he was remarkably predictable. Inside were recordings. Not documents. Not spreadsheets. Recordings. My finger hovered over the first one. A meeting. Voices. A timestamp from 3 months earlier, around the same time he had started staying late at work to fix budget discrepancies. Michael's voice. Just shred the originals. I'll handle the board. They trust me. Another voice, older, colder. That's your problem. You think trust is permanent. Michael. As long as my wife stays quiet, the board won't look too deeply at anything. She's emotional, but harmless. There it was. Truth. Raw and unfiltered. Not just the fraud. Not just the lies. But how he saw me. Emotional. Harmless. Convenient. It wasn't heartbreak I felt. It was clarity. I clicked on another recording. This time the setting was different, outdoors, faint traffic noise behind them. Mikhail. They won't trace it back to me. That's the whole point. It's in her name. My name. My heart stopped. The other man sounded alarmed. You're using her identity for this? Mikhail. She'll never know. And even if she does, she doesn't have the courage to fight me. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. The air thickened. My body went cold. He wasn't just hiding money. He was using me. My name. My identity. To cover his fraud. To protect himself. To gamble with my future, my safety, my entire life. I pressed pause, my hands trembling. Not from fear. From fury. From the realization that the man I married wasn't careless. He was dangerous. I dug deeper through emails, metadata, cross-referenced timestamps. And then I found it. The file that made everything click into place. A document labeled contingency if she finds out. Inside was a detailed plan. Instructions. Steps. Prepared months ago. My name. My accounts. My signature forged. A narrative he crafted to protect himself if I ever uncovered anything. He had already prepared to blame everything on me. The fraud. The shell company. The money trail. All of it. In his mind, I wasn't a wife. I was a shield. A disposable asset. And if things went wrong, I would be the one to fall. I closed the laptop. Slowly. Deliberately. A calm washed over me, not peace, but precision. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about survival. And survival requires strategy. Stealth. Patience. A willingness to watch the fire burn until the exact right moment to strike the match. Because now I had the truth. The evidence. The leverage. But what I didn't yet know was the identity of the person watching Michael from the shadows. The same person who texted me earlier. The same person who would turn out to be the most unexpected ally of all. The next morning felt unreal. Like every wall in the house knew something I didn't. Like the air itself was holding its breath. I moved through the kitchen in silence, making coffee I couldn't taste, replaying the recordings over and over again in my mind. Michael had tried to destroy me on paper. And in his mind I was already buried. Pause. But there was still one piece of the puzzle I hadn't solved. The unknown number. The text message. Check his laptop. Don't trust his business trips. Someone knew. Someone was watching him. Someone was watching us. I didn't like that. But I needed answers. And answers rarely come without risk. Around noon, as I sat staring at the damning folder labeled contingency, my phone buzzed. That same number. I froze. Hand hovering over the screen. I didn't want to answer it. But curiosity has a way of swallowing fear whole. I picked up. No greeting. No introduction. Just a calm, male voice. You saw it, didn't you? My throat tightened. Who is this? That's not the question you should be asking. His tone wasn't threatening, just sure of himself. Too sure. Then what should I be asking? I whispered. You should be asking why Michael is framing you. And who else he's been working with. My pulse stumbled. Working with? I heard recordings with. Not him. The man cut me off. Someone else. Someone closer. Closer how? Closer than you'd ever expect. Before I could form another word, he hung up. That afternoon, I left the house just to breathe different air. I walked down the street, pretending to be normal, pretending to function. But then I noticed it. A blue pickup truck. Parked 2 houses down. Engine off. Windows tinted. Facing my home. Strange. Still. Too still. I kept walking, pretending not to notice. But when I turned the corner, a shadow moved behind the windshield. Watching. Me. Not the street. Not the house. Me. Every instinct in my body sharpened. This wasn't paranoia. This was precision. Someone was tracking the situation. Maybe even tracking me. And I couldn't tell if they were a threat, or my only lifeline. That evening, the call came again. Same number. Calm voice. You should stop walking alone. He's getting reckless. I clenched the phone. Michael, or the man in the blue truck? A beat. Then. You noticed him. The man almost sounded pleased. Is that you? No. But you'll meet me soon. Why won't you tell me who you are? I will. When it's safe. Safe from what? Safe from your husband. My stomach dropped. He doesn't know I found the files. He will. Those two words sent a chill slicing through me. How do you know? Because he didn't create that contingency plan alone. My breath caught. Another collaborator. Someone a clause. Someone I hadn't suspected yet. My mind raced through possibilities. His accountant? A coworker? A wealthy client? His brother? The silence on the line stretched until it felt like a hand around my throat. Then the man said something that turned the room cold. The person helping him knows everything about you. Even things you think are private. What things? Your routines, your passwords, your medical history, your mother's maiden name, your movements. My entire body went rigid. That's impossible unless. Yes. A final answer. Heavy with certainty. Unless it's someone inside your home. The call ended. Just like that. Leaving me standing in my kitchen, clutching my phone, listening to the freezer hum like it was mocking me. I leaned against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. Someone inside my home? Inside my life? Helping Michael frame me? Monitoring me? And then. A memory surfaced. Uninvited. Unsettling. A moment from weeks earlier. A drawer moved. A misplaced notebook. A laptop cord that wasn't where I left it. All little things I had brushed off. Someone had been inside the house. Comfortably. Confidently. Like they belonged there. And suddenly, the truth hit me with a force that stole my breath. It might not have been a man. Or a coworker. Or a stranger. It might have been someone whose key I had given willingly. Someone I trusted. Someone who walked through my home without knocking. Someone who called me best friend. Because only one person besides Michael had access to everything the caller described. And if it was her, then the betrayal wasn't just marital. It was personal. Bone deep. Devastating. And I wasn't ready for the truth I was about to uncover. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I knew exactly who I needed to watch. Not Michael. Not the mysterious man calling me. Not the blue truck parked on my street. Her. A name I had never questioned. A woman I had laughed with, cried with, confided in for years. Someone who sat at my kitchen counter drinking coffee from my favorite mug. Sabrina. My best friend. My almost sister. The only person besides Michael with full access to my life. She knew my passwords because she helped me organize everything. She knew my routines because she worked remotely from my home half the time. She knew my medical info because she drove me to appointments. She knew my mother's maiden name because she helped me fill out forms. And she had a house key. A key I gave her myself. But none of that meant guilt. Not yet. I needed evidence. Proof. Something undeniable. And unfortunately, I found it. Too easily. Sabrina texted me that morning out of nowhere. Cheerful. Warm. Perfectly timed. Hey Babe, kaffe later. Net good time. My stomach twisted. Not because of the message. But because of the timing. She had never used that many exclamation points. Not once. Not in 10 years. Her texts were always dry, sarcastic, minimal. This wasn't her voice. It was a performance. A cover. A disguise wrapped in emojis. I decided to test her. I replied. Can we actually meet at my house? I'm too tired to go out. She answered in seconds. Too fast. Too eager. Yep. I'll be there in 20. And that was when I knew. The real Sabrina would have complained. Asked why. Teased me. Told me to get dressed anyway. This Sabrina? She wanted access to my house. Immediately. 20 minutes later, like clockwork, she arrived. A perfect smile. A perfect hug. Too perfect. I let her in. Watched her eyes move across the house in quick, subtle sweeps. Looking for something. Checking something. Assessing. She wasn't visiting a friend. She was inspecting a scene. Wow, she said casually. You look tired. Everything okay? Her tone was sweet. But her eyes weren't searching my face. They were searching the counter. The table. The office door. She was scanning for the laptop. The evidence. The files. My pulse thudded in my ears, but I forced a smile. Rough night, I murmured. Needed company. She gave a soft, sympathetic laugh. Oh babe. Men just drain us, don't they? Men. Plural. She said it like she knew something. Like she wanted to keep it broad. Safe. Deflecting. It wasn't working. We stood in the kitchen talking well, pretending to talk when she made the mistake that broke her entire act. Her purse vibrated. She panicked. Grabbed it too fast. Checked the screen too quickly. Turned it away from my eyes. Not like a friend receiving a message, but like a spy guarding intel. And for the briefest second, I saw the contact name flashing on her phone. A name that made the blood drain from my face. A name that shined like a knife under a spotlight. Michael, incoming call. My husband. Calling her. Under a label meant to seem innocent. But the timing wasn't innocent. Not when he was supposed to be in meetings all day. Not when she was in my kitchen. Not when she leapt to silence the call like it was a weapon. She put the phone in her purse and forced a smile. Spam, she said lightly. These robots keep calling me. Robots. Spam. Lies. All of it. She thought I didn't see the name. She thought she was safe behind that perfect smile. She had no idea I was watching every movement with surgical precision. I walked to the sink, pretending to rinse a glass. My hands steady. My breathing controlled. Then I said, casually, over my shoulder. Michael says hi, by the way. The silence behind me hit like a gunshot. Sharp. Instant. Revealing. Sabrina froze. I didn't have to turn around to know. Her smile dropped. Her eyes widened. Her heartbeat kicked up so hard I could feel it from across the room. You? Talk to him. She asked slowly. I turned to face her, leaning against the counter. Calm. Too calm. And in that moment, I saw it. The truth flicker across her face. The guilt. The panic. The calculation. The mask cracked. Then shattered. She opened her mouth to speak. But before a single word came out, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Another message from the unknown number. I pulled it out, heart pounding, and read it in front of her. Do not let her out of your sight. She already told him you found the files. Sabrina's eyes locked on the screen. Her entire expression changed. And for the first time since I had known her, she didn't bother pretending. She whispered, barely audible. You weren't supposed to know. Sabrina stood completely still. Her breath shallow. Her eyes darkening. And for the first time in our entire friendship, she wasn't pretending. The mask had fallen. Finally. Fully. I stared at her. The unknown number's warning burning at the top of my screen. She already told him you found the files. My chest tightened. So it was true. She wasn't just involved. She was active. Participating. Reporting. Feeding him information behind my back. Why? I asked. Not a scream. Not a whisper. Just one word heavy enough to shake the space between us. She blinked, jaw clenching. Like she was choosing which version of the truth to give me. Which lie would land softest. Which confession would hurt least. But then, something twisted in her expression. A strange mixture of sorrow and defiance. And she said the last thing I ever expected to hear. Because you weren't supposed to win. My hands went cold. Win what? Sabrina swallowed hard. It was the first moment she looked human. Not the perfect friend. Not the accomplice. Just a woman with something rotting inside her. You have no idea, she murmured. No idea how much you had. How much everyone saw. How easy your life was. My breath caught. My life? Sabrina, what are you talking about? She laughed a bitter, cracked sound. You think you got lucky with Michael? You think that huge house and those fancy vacations were just fate? Her eyes sharpened. Things like that don't land in your lap. They happen because someone else loses. My stomach twisted. You're not making sense. She stepped closer. Too close. Her voice dropped. I loved him first. My heart stopped. Every word hit like a fist to the ribs. Slow. Deliberate. Devastating. I was with him before you ever met him, she continued. He told me you were just a temporary distraction. Someone he'd have fun with for a few months. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. And then, she spat, you got him. You took what was supposed to be mine. I shook my head, disbelief boiling into nausea. You can't be serious. I was his plan, she snapped. His partner. His equal. The woman he was going to build a life with. Her voice cracked. And instead, he married you. The room tilted. Like gravity warped. My best friend. My closest confidante. The person who held my hand through heartbreaks and job losses. Was the woman who wanted my life. My marriage. My downfall. My throat tightened. So what did he offer you to betray me? Money? Position? Revenge? Sabrina's eyes flickered. Not money. She shook her head slowly. He offered me partnership. What does that even mean? She exhaled shakily. Business partnership. Equal stake. Once he left you. I froze. What? She nodded. He promised he'd leave you eventually, move out. File quietly. You'd get a nice settlement. A comfortable, soft little ending. And then he'd be with me. Publicly. My chest heaved. And the fraud? Did you know? She didn't hesitate. Yes. Betrayal burned so hot it felt cold. You helped him frame me. A long, heavy silence. Sabrina looked down. Her voice small now. I didn't want to. But you did. I thought you'd be fine, she whispered. I thought, you'd bounce back, you always do. My voice cracked. And if I went to prison? She looked away. It wouldn't be forever. Something inside me snapped. Not loud. Not violent. Just a clean, quiet break. Like glass giving up under pressure. You watched me break. I whispered. You watched him lie to me. You watched him take everything. And you said nothing. You wouldn't understand, she muttered. No, I said, stepping forward. You wouldn't understand. Her eyes flickered up, startled. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was calm. Too calm. A kind of clarity that only comes after devastation. And now, I said softly, you're going to tell me everything. She stiffened. You can't. Yes, I cut in. You can. And you will. Because you owe me that much. But before she could respond, my phone buzzed. A new message from the unknown number. I opened it. The words made my blood freeze. He's on his way home. Do not let her leave. Sabrina saw the message. Her face drained of color. And in the smallest whisper she said, you don't understand. If he gets here, everything ends. Everything. Not just the conversation. Not just the truth. Something bigger. Something darker. Something she was terrified of. The clock struck 6:14 a.m. When Madison stepped out of the shower, steam rolling behind her like battlefield smoke. She stared at herself in the mirror. Not the woman Thomas had belittled. Not the woman the board underestimated. Not the woman who'd been dismissed in a room full of men who said she was just a wife. No. This morning, she was someone else entirely. Someone reborn. Someone dangerous. The kind of woman who didn't wait for justice. She delivered it. Madison dressed with purpose. Not glamorous. Not loud. No designer symbols shouting status. Just clean lines, black suit, hair pinned, eyes steady. The outfit of a woman walking into a room. Not to be tolerated, but to take ownership. Outside, her phone buzzed once. A message from Harold. It's done. They'll be in the conference room at 8 a.m. Just walk in. Her breath caught. There it was. The moment all the humiliation had been marching toward. Down hallways of ridicule. Through nights of loneliness. Across years of slowly shrinking under Thomas's shadow. Now she would step into the same room where Thomas humiliated her. And she'd do it as the woman who now controlled his oxygen supply. Thomas had not slept. He'd tossed through the night, haunted by the board meeting, haunted by Madison's silence, haunted by the one thing he could not control. A woman who stopped caring what he thought. He stumbled into the kitchen wearing last night's shirt, hair wild, voice raspy. Thomas. Why hasn't Harold returned my calls? What the hell is going on? His phone buzzed. He lunged for it. Wrong number. Another buzz. Not Harold. Another. Not the board. He felt it. Somewhere in the pit of his chest. The sensation that something enormous had shifted and he hadn't been there to stop it. Fear. Real fear. Began to pulse beneath his ribs. The city glided past her window, unaware a corporate earthquake was minutes away. She rested her hand on the folder in her lap. Sealed audit reports. Voting agreements. Filed motions. Notarized transfers. And one final envelope addressed to Thomas himself. The envelope that would end him. Not destroy him violently. Not publicly humiliate him. Not reduce him to the monster he once tried to make her believe he was. No. That would have been too simple. This was the kind of ending that made people whisper for years. How did he lose everything? By morning. Lights flickered overhead as the elevator ascended. Her heart beat steady. Her breaths controlled. A soldier entering her own war. The doors slid open with a chime that felt too soft for the moment. She walked down the corridor, heels tapping like a countdown. 1 second. 1 step. 1 breath closer. To the room. To the board. To Thomas's throne. And to the moment she would quietly, calmly, coolly take it from under him. Without ever raising her voice. She reached the frosted glass doors. A pause. Her hand hovered over the handle. She inhaled once. Slow. Deep. Rooted. Then she pushed. 11 men. 2 women. Every seat filled. Every face turning toward her. Silence scraped across the room. They weren't expecting her. Good. She stepped inside, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet. Madison. Good morning. Let's begin. Their confusion. Their whispers. Their sideways glances. All of it washed off her like rain. Chairman Wells adjusted his glasses, baffled. Chairman. Mrs. Hale, why exactly are you here? Her smile was gentle. Dangerously gentle. She placed her folder on the table. Madison. Because this morning there are decisions to finalize. Decisions about the company. And decisions about Thomas. The room stilled. Cold. Sharp. Electrified. She slid the documents forward like a dealer laying down a winning hand. Madison. Effective immediately, I am the controlling shareholder of Hale Global. Stunned silence widened like a cavern. A single pen dropped. Someone inhaled too sharply. A man whispered. Impossible. Another muttered, Harold, he knew. She continued, steady and unshaken. Madison. Every percentage Thomas entrusted to Harold for safekeeping has been legally transferred. A pause. A small one. Deadly one. Madison. Tome. His wife. Shock. Disbelief. A few impressed smiles. 2 outright grins. Someone whispered, she played him. Another. No, she outsmarted all of them. Chairman Wells exhaled. Long. Slow. Chairman. Mrs. Hale, what exactly do you intend to do? Madison leaned forward just slightly. Her voice a subtle warning wrapped in grace. Madison. First. Vote. She lifted the final envelope. Thomas's envelope. And set it on the table. Madison. And when Thomas arrives, he'll learn the morning truth. Fade to black. Thomas Hale burst through the lobby doors of Hale Global at 8:03 a.m. 3 minutes late. 3 minutes that would cost him everything. His stivas crooked. His jaw tense. His breath shallow. Security guards glanced at him strangely. As if they knew something he didn't. As if they were watching a king arrive at his own coronation, only to discover the crown had already been placed on someone else's head. He had no idea the morning had already chosen sides. And it wasn't his. The elevator ride felt slower than usual. He tapped his foot. Checked his phone. No messages from Harold. No messages from the board. A silence he didn't like. A silence that meant something was wrong. Very wrong. Madison sat poised. Calm. Patient. The eye of a storm she had engineered herself. The board murmured quietly. Some whispering admiration. Some masking panic. All of them watching the door. Waiting for Thomas. Waiting for the moment when a man so used to control would realize he had none left. Chairman Wells leaned toward Madison. Chairman. He won't take this easily. Madison. He doesn't have to. He only has to accept it. Her voice softened at the end. Not cruel. Not triumphant. Just, done. The sound echoed. Every head turned. Madison didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Footsteps. Fast. Sharp. Agitated. The door swung open. Thomas froze. Everything inside him stilled. The board. The documents. The chair at the head of the table. Occupied. By her. By the woman he'd belittled. Dismissed. Humiliated. The woman he never imagined would stand at the top of his empire. Before he even realized he was falling. Madison. What are you doing in my seat? Madison lifted her eyes to him. Steady, unflinching, unafraid. Madison. Your seat? A quiet smile curved her lips. Madison. Thomas. This isn't your seat anymore. The room went ice cold. Thomas blinked. Stunned. Thomas. I don't understand. What game is this? Madison. No games. Just truth. She slid the controlling shared documents toward him. He scanned them. Once. Twice. A third time, slower. His breathing hitched. His throat tightened. His fingers trembled. Thomas. This is impossible. Harold would never. Madison. Harold didn't betray you. You betrayed yourself. You made him hold your shares because you didn't trust me. And you didn't think I was smart enough to take them. A deeper silence fell. The kind that ends dynasties. That was the first moment Thomas Hale understood the truth about underestimating a woman. You don't see the knife until it's already inside the throne. Thomas's jaw clenched. He leaned forward, voice lowered, wounded pride turning into a tremor of rage. Thomas. You think you can just walk in here and take my company? Madison. No. I didn't take anything. She rose to her feet. Slow, elegant, deliberate. Madison. You handed me the power years ago. You just never noticed. Gasps rippled across the room. Someone whispered. She's remarkable. Another, he's finished. Thomas' voice cracked. Thomas. Madison. Don't do this. Please. You don't know what you're setting in motion. Her eyes softened. There was no hate. No vengeance. Only truth. Madison. I'm not destroying you. I'm freeing myself. She placed the final envelope. His envelope. Into his hands. Madison. Read it. He hesitated. Then opened it. Inside was a single page. A formal notice of removal. A severance package. And a choice. Resign quietly. Or be voted out publicly. Thomas's voice fell to a whisper. Thomas. You're removing me? Madison exhaled, steady and sure. Madison. I'm removing your control over me. The board waited. The room held its breath. Thomas looked around. Searching for loyalty. For support. For anyone willing to stand with him. No one moved. No one spoke. No one even looked him in the eye. He sank slowly into his chair. The same one he once ruled from. Now a witness to his undoing. His voice came out hollow. Thomas. What? What happens now? Madison sat back down. Her answer was soft. Measured. Final. Madison. Now? The vote. She looked to the board. Madison. All in favor of removing Thomas Hale as CEO. Raise your hand. Hands rose. One by one. Unbroken. Unwavering. Thomas watched the last hand lift. Chairman Wells. His fate sealed. His empire gone. His wife. The woman he underestimated. Now in full command. The vote ended at 8:27 a.m. 27 minutes after Thomas walked into the building. 27 minutes to dismantle a man who spent 20 years building a throne wide enough only for himself. The board lowered their hands. The room exhaled. The world tilted. Madison stayed perfectly still. She didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Didn't celebrate. She simply watched the man across from her. The man who once dictated the rhythm of her entire life. As he processed the weight of losing it all. It wasn't triumph that filled me. Not glory. Not revenge. Just quiet. Like finally setting down a burden I had carried too long. Thomas stared at the polished table, throat tight, eyes distant. He looked like a king staring at the ruins of his own castle, wondering when the fire started, and why he never smelled the smoke. His voice trembled. Thomas. So that's it? You just take everything and walk away? Madison didn't answer right away. She studied him, searching for the man she once loved. Or at least the pieces of him. Then, Madison. You took me for granted long before I took your company. Gasps. Whispers. A few exchanged glances. But Madison didn't break eye contact. Not for a second. Chairman Wells slid another folder forward. Chairman. Mr. Hale. This requires your signature to finalize your resignation. Thomas didn't touch it. Thomas. What if I don't sign? Wells swallowed, sympathetic but firm. Chairman. It won't change the outcome. It will only change how publicly it happens. Thomas deflated. Completely. It was like watching a skyscraper collapse. Slow at first. Then all at once. Into a pile of everything it used to be. Madison felt her heart tighten. Despite everything. Despite the betrayal. Despite the night he left her off that trip like she was a bag he forgot to load. A part of her still remembered the man she married. The man she thought she married. And that part. Hurt. I expected victory to feel like fire. It felt like ash. Thomas finally reached for the pen. His hand shook. He hovered over the page. Thomas. Madison, please. Don't do this to me. She swallowed hard. Madison. You did this, Thomas. You just never thought I'd survive it. He closed his eyes. Signed. The sound of the pen scraping the paper echoed like a blade being unsheathed. A security officer stepped forward. A quiet humiliation. Security. Mr. Hale. Your badge. Thomas froze. If stripping him of his title was the wound, this was the salt. He removed the badge slowly. Laid it on the table. His fingers lingered on it. As if letting go meant acknowledging the end. Then he stepped back. One small step. But it felt like the entire building shifted beneath him. The board stood. Some avoided eye contact. Some nodded respectfully. Some looked relieved. Madison remained seated. She wasn't ready to look away. Not yet. Thomas held the doorframe. His voice cracked. Thomas. Madison? Why didn't you just talk to me? She inhaled sharply. Because she had. Because he never listened. Because he never saw her. Until she became too big to ignore. Her answer was steady, but heavy. Madison. I tried, Thomas, for years. You were the one who walked away. Long before today. His shoulders slumped. His eyes glossed. Then, without another word, he turned. And walked out. Not as CEO. Not as a titan. Not even as a husband. Just a man realizing. Too late. That arrogance is the slowest kind of suicide. The door closed behind him. Madison let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Chairman Wells approached. Chairman. You handled that with grace. More than most would have. Madison forced a small nod. Madison. Thank you. But her eyes drifted toward the door. toward the world Thomas had just stepped into alone. Was this justice? Or just sadness wearing the mask of victory? The board shuffled papers, preparing statements, organizing the public release. But Madison just sat there, lost in the sudden quiet. Then she caught her reflection in the glass window. A woman who looked stronger, but also lonelier. She whispered to herself, Madison. What now? That was the question. The one she'd been avoiding. Because stripping Thomas of power was only part of the story. The real battle was the life that came after. And she was about to discover something she never expected. Thomas's downfall wasn't the final twist. It was only the beginning. Thomas was gone. But the silence he left behind didn't feel like peace. It felt like a warning. A storm that hadn't fully broken. A truth that hadn't yet surfaced. And deep down, Madison could feel it. Something wasn't finished. I thought removing him would close the story. But sometimes, removing a person only uncovers the mess they hid behind them. The board dispersed. Lovers followed. Assistants rushed to prepare statements. But Madison remained seated at the head of the table. Her first moments as CEO. She should have felt triumphant, liberated, powerful. Instead, a single uneasy thought kept circling her mind. What was Thomas so afraid of losing? What was he warning me about? Because his last words weren't about power, or money, or reputation. They were about what she had set in motion. And that didn't sound like a man mourning a company. It sounded like a man terrified of something bigger. And Madison knew this. Thomas Hale was many things. But he wasn't easily scared. She walked into Thomas's office. The air was stale. The windows dimmed by clouds. The walls cleaner than she remembered. Too clean. As if he'd scrubbed away anything that could expose him. But nobody hides everything. Not even him. Madison approached his desk. Ran her fingers across the glass surface. Empty. Organized. Sterile. Then, a flicker. A faint line on the wood panel beneath the desk. She knelt. Pressed it. A compartment clicked open. Hidden. Locked. Protected. Her pulse quickened. Inside. A single black notebook. Thick. Heavy. Worn at the edges. She lifted it slowly. Like lifting the lid of a coffin. What did you hide from me, Thomas, and why? She opened the first page. Her breath caught. Because the first name written inside wasn't his. It was hers. In bold ink. Underlined. Madison. Followed by a date. A date from months ago. A date that meant something. But she didn't know what. Not yet. Her hands trembled as she flipped to the next page. Receipts. Transactions. Meetings. Names she didn't recognize. Then, a photo. Her photo. Zoomed in. Taken from a distance. Madison felt her lungs tighten. She turned the next page. Another photo. Of her. Leaving the house. Entering a cafe. Walking into a parking garage. Private moments. Tracked. Recorded. Followed. Her vision blurred. Her voice cracked. Madison. Thomas. What did you do? But the worst page was the one that came next. Because the next page wasn't about her. It was about him. The heading. Risk factors exposure. Under it. A list. A long one. Names of offshore accounts. Shell companies. Hidden partnerships. Unpaid taxes. Suspicious transfers. Millions missing. Millions moved. All under Hale Global. All under Thomas's authority. All traceable. And somehow, every path looped back to her name. Her signature forged. Her emails duplicated. Her identity tied into every illegal path he took. Not to frame her directly, but to tether her to his empire so deeply, she could never leave without burning alive in the fallout. Madison dropped the notebook. Stumbled back. Her hand covered her mouth. Tears stung her eyes. He didn't just underestimate me. He chained me to a sinking ship. And expected me to drown quietly. The implications spiraled. If authorities investigated, her name was everywhere. If the company came under scrutiny, she was implicated. If Thomas fell, he'd take her with him. She understood. Finally. Thomas wasn't afraid of losing the company today. He was afraid she'd uncover this. His real empire. Built on fraud, secrecy, and deceit. And he warned her because now. She was the CEO. And the storm was coming for her. Not him. Henni's boucle. She caught herself on the desk. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't karma. This was a trap. A slow, patient, calculated trap. Designed years ago. Thomas hadn't just prepared for losing power. He prepared to survive it. And now he was out there. Free. Untouched. Watching her step onto the landmine he buried. Madison flinched. The caller ID. Unknown. Her pulse thundered. She answered. Madison. Hello. A familiar voice. Steady. Cold. Too calm. Thomas. I told you, you don't know what you've set in motion. Madison's breath froze. Thomas. But now you will. Click. The line went dead. The room spun. The truth slammed into her like a tidal wave. He didn't lose today. He planned for it. The man she dethroned was far more dangerous off the throne. In that moment, I understood one thing clearly. The day I took the company was the day the real war began. Madison gripped the desk. Rage building beneath her ribs. Not fear. Not defeat. Rage. Because Thomas Hale might have built a trap. But he forgot one thing. She wasn't the woman he used to control. She was the woman who took his kingdom. And she would burn through every secret he buried. Before she let him destroy her life. She lifted the notebook. Wiped her tears. Steeled herself. Madison. If you wanted a war, Thomas. You just chose the wrong opponent. But she didn't know. Not yet. That the notebook wasn't the only secret he left behind. There was something else. Something she would discover in the next 24 hours. And it would change her entire understanding of the man she married. And the price she would pay to defeat him. The next morning didn't feel like morning. The sun rose over Houston, painting the skyline in soft gold. But nothing about the day felt warm. Madison stood in the CEO's office. Thomas's black notebook on the desk before her. It felt like a live bomb ticking under glass. She hadn't slept. Not a minute. Her mind replayed every page, every signature, every forged trail leading back to her name. Every step Thomas had taken, with her as the fallback casualty. Her hands still trembled. Her throat still felt tight. And the words he said on the phone, the calm, chilling way he said them, echoed like a warning she wasn't meant to ignore. I thought the hardest part was taking the company. But the hardest part was realizing he had always planned for me to hold the ticking grenade. Then, a knock. 3 soft taps. Madison stiffened. Come in. Harold entered. But something in his face, something weary, strained, apologetic, sent a cold pinprick through her spine. He closed the door behind him. Didn't sit. Didn't speak right away. He held a folder in one hand, a badge in the other. Harold. Madison. We have a problem. Her pulse spiked. Madison. What kind of problem? Harold exhaled slowly, like a man delivering a verdict he didn't want to say. Harold. The SEC is here. Downstairs. Asking for you. Her breath still. The room contracted around her. Madison. What? Already? For what? He stepped closer, voice heavy. Harold. They received an anonymous tip late last night. About fraud. About offshore accounts. About misuse of company funds. Madison's blood ran cold. Anonymous tip. Anonymous. Last night. Thomas. Of course it was him. Her stomach twisted. He didn't wait. He didn't give me a single day. He walked out of that boardroom and lit the match before I even found the gasoline. Madison. And, they think I did it. Harold lowered his gaze. Harold. Your name is attached to the signatures, Madison. The emails. The authorizations. A quiet horror washed over her. Madison. Forged. I can prove they're forged. I can show them the notebook. Harold. No. He held up a hand. Harold. You can't show them anything yet. Because you don't know what else he planted. If you hand them partial evidence and Thomas has the rest, he can control the narrative. That truth struck deep. Thomas didn't just hide secrets. He hid pieces of them. And only he knew the order of the puzzle. He was playing chess from the shadows. And she was the only piece moving under a spotlight. Madison swallowed hard. Madison. What do they want from me? Harold's expression darkened. He handed her the folder. Inside. A formal notice. A request for immediate interview. A demand for financial disclosure. And at the bottom, a temporary freeze of all accounts connected to her name. Madison felt her knees weaken. Madison. Oh God. Harold reached out to steady her. Harold. I'm so sorry. He set this up. He weaponized your new role. He knew the moment the company shifted hands, all scrutiny would shift to you. Madison closed her eyes. Tears threatening. Madison. He wanted me to take the fall. He planned for it. Harold nodded. Harold. He planned everything. Madison sat slowly, feeling the full weight of her new title. Not CEO. Not leader. Target. The notebook stared back at her. Dark, ominous, accusing. She ran a shaking hand over its cover. I thought I exposed him by taking the company, but all I did was step onto the minefield he designed. Harold. There's something else. Her heart dropped. She didn't want to hear it. She already felt like she was sinking. But Harold continued. Harold. The investigators. They didn't just ask for you. Madison looked up sharply. Madison. Who else? Harold hesitated. His eyes tightened. Harold. They asked for your father. Madison stopped breathing. Her chest burned. Her ears rang. Madison. My father? Why? He has nothing to do with any of this. Harold swallowed hard. Harold. Thomas listed him as a silent advisor on several offshore accounts. Madison grabbed the edge of the desk, to keep from collapsing. Her father, a retired mechanic, pulled into corporate fraud? Thomas forged that, too. Her eyes filled. Her hands curled into fists. Madison. He went after my family. Harold nodded. Quietly. Harold. Yes. He made sure if anything ever came down, you wouldn't be able to fight alone. Madison shook with rage and heartbreak. This wasn't business. This wasn't revenge. This was personal. Thomas had set a trap designed not just to ruin her, but to destroy everyone she loved. If she ever turned against him. He didn't leave me a company. He left me a battlefield. And he expected me to bleed alone. Harold placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. Harold. You have a choice. You can face them today. Or we can delay a few hours while we gather legal support. Madison closed the notebook. Firm. Decisive. Her tears dried. Her back straightened. A new fire lit inside her. Hot. Angry. Clear. Madison. No. I'm not hiding. I'm not stalling. She stood. Madison. Thomas wants a war? He's about to get one. Harold exhaled with relief. Or maybe awe. Harold. Then let's begin. But as Madison walked toward the door, ready to face the investigators, ready to confront the trap Thomas built, she didn't know one thing. The SEC wasn't the only group waiting for her. Someone else arrived for her that morning. Someone she never expected. With a truth she wasn't prepared to hear. A truth that would turn everything upside down again. The conference room was cold. Sterile. Impersonal. Madison stepped inside with Harold by her side. Her black suit pressed neatly against her frame. Her hair pinned tight, eyes sharp. The woman who once trembled at Thomas's words now walked into a battlefield unafraid. The investigators sat waiting, tablets and files at the ready. They weren't hostile, but the weight of suspicion clung to the air like fog. Harold leaned closer. Remember, stay calm, show them the notebook but don't reveal everything. Madison nodded. Her heartbeat steadied. Her gaze never wavered. I thought the hardest part was taking the company. I thought the storm was Thomas. But the storm wasn't him. It was what he left behind. The questions began slowly. Procedural. Polite. But Madison knew the undercurrent. They were testing her. Pushing for cracks. hunting for weaknesses. And she remained flawless, measured, careful, until the door opened. A man stepped inside. Not an investigator. Not security. A stranger. Tall. Lean. With eyes that didn't miss anything. Madison Hale? Her breath caught. Harold stiffened. She took a step forward. Madison. Yes. Who are you? The man smiled faintly. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm here because Thomas Hale made sure you couldn't do this alone. And yet, he also made sure someone would try to stop you. Madison's pulse raced. Something in his tone screamed danger. And yet, familiarity. Madison. Explain. He walked slowly toward the desk, placing a thin envelope on it. Open it. Madison hesitated. But curiosity outweighed caution. Inside. Photographs. Detailed. Precise. Of meetings. Transactions. Phone calls. All her moves from the last 24 hours. And at the bottom, a note, written in bold, neat handwriting. Thomas isn't your only problem. The people he trusted are watching you too. Every step I thought I had taken safely, every victory I thought I'd earned, was already shadowed by someone else's plan. Madison looked up at the man. Her voice steady, but her heart pounding. Who are you? He smiled faintly. Consider me a messenger. Thomas's empire has layers he never showed you. You took the throne. But the ground beneath it is still wired to explode. Harold grabbed her arm. Madison. We need to move. Now. But Madison shook him off. Her eyes never left the man. I can handle this. He nodded once. Do what you must. But remember. Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you control. It's not all yours yet. Not until you uncover every secret he planted. With that, he turned and left, leaving the envelope and a room full of investigators staring at her. Madison sank into a chair. The notebook. The folder. The envelope. All pieces of a puzzle Thomas Hale had left behind. And now, she realized. This wasn't just about the company. It wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't just about Thomas. It was about survival. About uncovering every hidden truth. About outmaneuvering a man who had thought himself untouchable. And everyone he had ever trusted. Her jaw set. Her hands clenched. Her mind raced. Madison. If he thinks this will break me, he's already lost. But deep inside, she knew. This was only the beginning. And the next twist would challenge everything she believed about power, loyalty, and the man she once loved. The sun had dipped low over Houston. Golden light streaked across glass towers, painting long shadows through the boardroom where Madison had claimed her throne. Her desk was littered with evidence, files, and the black notebook Thomas's legacy of deceit. Her fingers hovered over the envelope from the stranger, the one warning her that Thomas's empire had more layers she hadn't uncovered yet. She inhaled deeply. The weight of the last 48 hours pressed against her chest. The board's whispers, the investigator's stares, Thomas's threats, all of it felt like a storm about to break. But she didn't flinch. She wasn't the frightened wife he had dismissed. Not anymore. I realized then. Power isn't about taking. Power isn't about revenge. Power is about seeing clearly, standing firmly, and deciding who you will become when the world tries to define you. Madison opened the envelope again. Inside, she found a single USB drive. She plugged it into her laptop. Files loaded. Emails. Bank transfers. Contracts. All pointing to Thomas's hidden partners, people she didn't even know existed. And at the very top, a message. Expose the truth. Finish what I started. Protect yourself. Protect the company. A note signed. Thomas Hale. She froze. Her mind raced. Her anger boiled. Thomas had planned everything, even his exit. Even his traps. But somehow, he had underestimated her will. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Meet me at the old office. 7 p.m. alone. Come ready. Her pulse quickened. This was it. The final encounter. Harold tried to protest. Madison, this could be a trap. She shook her head. This is the reckoning. The old office smelled faintly of stale coffee and leather chairs. Thomas sat behind the same desk where he had once held absolute control. But now, he looked smaller. Older. Worn. He didn't rise. He didn't reach for charm or bluster. Thomas. You did it. You beat me. Madison stepped forward. Her voice steady. Her eyes blazing. Madison. I didn't just beat you. I survived you. And I uncovered everything you tried to hide. Thomas exhaled slowly, almost regretfully. He leaned back in his chair. Thomas. I wanted you to be stronger. To survive what I could never let you see. Madison's hands shook not with fear, but with emotion. Madison. You left a trail of pain behind. And you nearly destroyed my life. Do you realize that? Thomas looked at her, finally showing vulnerability. Thomas. I know. And I'm sorry. But the truth is. You always had the strength. I just forced you to see it. It was the strangest victory I'd ever felt. Not the triumph over him. But the triumph over fear, over doubt, over the life I thought I had lost. Power wasn't revenge. Power wasn't control. Power was knowing I could face anything. Even the man who once thought he controlled me. Madison left the office that night. The city lights twinkled like distant stars. The wind carried a sense of renewal. She didn't feel empty. She didn't feel broken. She felt alive. Capable. Free. Her phone buzzed again. Harold's message. Congratulations, Madison. You did it. She smiled faintly. For the first time in years, she believed it. Madison stood on the balcony of her office, looking out over the city she now led. Her narration softened. Psalm reflective, resolved. Madison. Life doesn't give you power, you take it. Life doesn't hand you justice, you create it. And life will always test your courage. But sometimes, when the world breaks you, you discover you were unbreakable all along. The wind whispered through her hair. The sun set behind the skyline. And she finally felt whole.